you're going? How do you see your marriage in 10 years? Is it all about just being lovey-dovey, or like do you just see great impact? Because there's just more. There is so much more, so much more. It's like love. Is it okay? We've got together and we're just gonna have kids. Like, what is your foundation? Like, where are you guys going? What's your mission? What are you guys about? Welcome back to the Wedex Book Club.
Bono olólùfẹ́ mi wá tù mí lára lára ìfẹ́ tó rẹwà tó dáradára mi ò ní fi ẹ́ sí.
From Wedex Bridals, and welcome back to another episode of the Wedex Book Club. So today I'm going to be reviewing the book of July, which was You and Me Forever by Francis and Lisa Chan. What can I say? What can I say? This has been one of my favorite reads, as in it just stirred me up, like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, it just stirred me up. It's just a lot of reminders, a lot of things about what God was showing me about marriage, like before I got married, which I just thought was so important, and like a really awesome reminder and a practical book all in one. I just, yeah, it's been my favorite book to read. That I read it twice. Probably wondering how I read that twice in the month, but yeah, that's how I got into it, and I read it twice. Yeah, because it was just such a, I just found it so powerful. So this is definitely one for married people, just as a reminder of, like, because we could get so caught up, like, oh, you know, you're married now, and you know, have your kids, and you probably might have kids by now, and this, that, and it's always like, what's next, what's next, what's next, what's next. And I just think this is a great reminder just to put things back into perspective, depending on where you're coming from. It is a Christian author, and it is very centered around the Word of God. So from that perspective, it is. And I think even if you're not married, and even if you're not a Christian, I say take a read of this book and actually just think about marriage, like in light of in light of what you're doing, in light of, okay, how is it for me? What is it for me? What, it's just a reminder of what is the purpose of it? What are we doing this for? You know? So I think it's just, yeah, that reminder, and I actually totally enjoyed it. So I'm going to share with you some of the things I pulled out. Can't pull out the whole book, obviously, so I'm going to pull out some things, some of my learning points, things I loved as I was reading it, and share those with you. The learning point is just like, what is your foundation? Like, what direction are you going? Because obviously this is going to have a big impact on where you guys are going as a couple, what you guys are thinking about, and obviously the end goal, the end result. You know, like if your goal was to just have kids, and then you have kids and they grow up, then probably you're not going to be together by the time your kids grow up and leave, kind of thing. And it is actually just something to think about, like, what is your foundation? Where are you coming from? Because that really directs things for you, and where you're going, how you're going to work on your marriage, how you're going to deal with things. And yeah, you know, so like being a Christian, we look at the Word, and we use the Word a lot, and just a reminder of what we are here for, you know, like, and he talks a lot about, it's not even about, like, it's more about the mission, like what God's called us to do, like to make disciples. So you really think like, okay, like what's that even got to do with marriage? But it's like you're coming together as a team to do something great. But what is your foundation? What are you guys thinking? Like, what direction are you guys going in? Do you even know? Have you even discussed it? Have you even spoken about it? You know, and that was just something that really pulled out to me. Like, I just thought, yeah, like, you need those reminders sometimes, because life just takes you over. Things just takes you over. Even just like sometimes you see what other normal married couples do, and then you kind of feel like maybe I should be doing that. So you can get like really sidetracked without even realizing. And pressures, you know, once you get married, the next thing is everyone's telling you to have kids. Then you have kids, they tell you have to have more kids. And then you start worrying about the school, you start worrying about your borough you live in, because you want to get them in the best school. Then you start worrying about their results, and then they finish school, and then you're worried about the uni. And it's like there is always something to be worried and concerned about, which actually takes us away from the direction we're going, like actually can take us away from what's going on in our marriage. What is this all about? Like, is that it? Like, was that all it was about? And to just put on top work and everything, like what's your foundation? Like, what's going to keep you together? Because if you've gone into this to do it till the very end, till death do you part, like what's your foundation for that? Like, is it just that, oh yeah, we love each other and that's it? Or is there more? Is there what's going to hold you together? What's going to make you know that no matter what, we're going to stick to that? No matter what, we're going to go with that? How are you going to work it out? What things are you going to do? Because that, understanding your foundation, understanding where you're getting that from, is going to make a big difference to the direction you're both going in how you handle your things, how you handle your business, how you handle your arguments, how you handle your day-to-day things. Because yeah, it's like that really matters. Where are you coming from? And I think sometimes even as Christians, we do talk about the Bible, we do talk about using the word, but I don't know if we use it so much. I don't know how much it is the center of it all. I don't know how much Christ is the center of that relationship, or more or less the things we believe marriage should look like is the center of that relationship. And I think it's just so important to have that reminder, so important to actually go back, really, study the word, and just even like you get stuff from this book, like just as a reminder, as something to think about, like, okay, like, yeah, what are we doing here actually? What is this all about? Sit back and yeah, get your focus back. Get your focus back and where you're going, because it's just so important to keep your marriage long lasting. Second point was the role of a husband, and he has a section in one of the chapters saying love like a man, and I just read it and I was thinking, like, this is really what, like, as a woman, like, we're looking for. And I'll just read it from page 75. It says, husband, loves your wife. How? As Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. I have been given the tremendous task. I am supposed to be Jesus. My love should remind Lisa of Christ's love. The longer life goes on, the more she should feel like she is married to Jesus. I should be selfless, that it reminds her of the cross. I should have such a high standard of purity that she never has a reason to doubt my faithfulness. Just as she would never dream of being lied to by Jesus, she would be confident that I will never waver from the vow I made to her. And I just thought, yeah, like, with that's what we want, like that confidence in our husbands, that, he's gonna do what he's saying he's gonna do, and we should just not have to worry about it. Like, yeah, we want that confidence. And he just goes on, because he goes on to just talk about how some people think like that's the role of the woman, and according to the word, is like submission, and that's the biggest thing and that's the hardest thing. And he was like, no, like, if you understand what it actually means to like love Jesus as Christ loved the church, it talks about, he endured the Father's wrath for you. No one else will ever love you as much, nor endure as much pain for you. He didn't sit passively in heaven criticizing you. He zealously came after you. And he said, we cannot display Christ's love without hurting Jesus, giving himself for the church. This speaks of his death. There was nothing he withheld from his bride. Like, who said the word isn't romantic? Like, you just need those reminders sometimes. And I really like that, like, that reminder. And I just thought, yeah, this is, you want to have that confidence in your husband. You want to just not have to worry, like, you just don't want to worry. And then he just talks about himself, and he's talking about, it's embarrassing that I could even struggle to do these things. So he was talking about, like, even just maybe eating things that she likes, just giving up like little things. And he says, it's embarrassing that I even struggle to do these things. In a sense, the bigger things seem easier, like taking a bullet for her or pushing her away from the speeding train, since Lisa likes playing on train tracks. Maybe I should maybe I could muster up the courage for one courageous moment of sacrifice, but I need to look at the bigger picture. It's not just about sacrifices, big or small. It's about character. It's about becoming like Christ. Yeah. Yeah, I just found that so powerful. I just found it like, yeah, and when just talked about character, and I just thought, yeah, that's it. It has to be a character figure. It has to be what that person is. It can't be acted out. You can't yeah, it can't be just for a day, like just be up and down. Like it has to be how they are. It has to be, who they are, kind of thing. And I think, yeah, if you can get some roles down, if you can get who you're supposed to be and who your husband's supposed to be, things would just be so much easier, I think. And you'd probably deal with things so much differently. I thought that was very powerful. And yeah, just reminder of like how to love. So yeah, my husband needs to be reading this book as well. I told him several times he needs to read this because we need that reminder. And he has, like, on page 80 he had his blueprint, so I have to keep referring to the book because I just thought it was so this kind of like summarizes everything he was saying in that chapter. And he says, so here's the blueprint of marriage. We become overwhelmed by Christ's care for us, so we shower our wives with the same love we receive from God. Then people are shocked by the extravagant love towards our wives. As a result, we are given an opportunity to tell them about the love of Christ that compels us. Yeah. So I just think it's about mission. I think it's just, it's deeper than this romantic, like, as in romance as we probably see it in Hollywood and on TV, and probably what we've kind of adopted into our lives as the blueprint for marriage. I just think it's so much more powerful than that, and that just reminded me of it. So my next point was about humility, and how it can play out. So I have to go to page 85. She was talking, so the way they've done the book is, in each chapter it's like from Francis's viewpoint, and then he also does from Lisa. So Lisa also does a section as well, so which is also really helpful because it's obviously from husband wife perspective and how they deal with it. So on one of the sections, Lisa, she was talking about humility. She was talking about a lady that came to her, and this goes back to your mission, like, what is this all about? And she was like, oh, that she don't love her husband anymore, but because she knows God wouldn't agree with that, she's going to do it for that reason. She's going to try and deal with this. She's going to try and work it out for that reason. And she said even for her, that was like, oh, wow, like, okay, but it's real. Like, that is humility. That's what she was trying to explain. Like, that is humility. And she talks about prideful people are defensive, angry, blame shifting, and focused on self. And so they consistently see that the problem lies not with them, but with everyone else. He says the gospel is not the focus, it is not the goal. Humble people are broken over their own sin, more concerned about honouring God than arguing about what they deserve, and try, by the grace of God, to stay focused on the gospel and the goal. And for me, that goes back to your mission, because obviously if your basis of your marriage is not on the word, like, then that's a bit of a void comment to you. But whatever it is on the basis of, what kind of steers it, how do you work things out, and I think that was for me, like, definitely things that the Lord was showing me. It isn't really necessarily about your spouse, it's about him. Like, it is about him and honouring him at the end of the day. And yeah, that was the biggest thing he taught me about, like, not getting divorced, because it's about him at the end of it all. Like, what is he saying? What does he want? And how would he see it? What's his viewpoint on it? You know, and it's not easy because sometimes things happen and you want to prove your point. You know, you want to prove your point, and in proving your point, you're gonna have a big argument. And I don't think humility means you will never have an argument, but yeah, your focus is slightly different. Like where you're coming from is very different. What you're thinking about is very different. So how you will handle it is very different. And I pray for more of that grace. I honestly do pray for more of that grace. Yeah, to see it more from God's perspective rather than my own, you know, so that I can put things out there properly, and be a humble person. I think, yeah, I think that's that, and I think that's like that, what would Jesus do kind of thing. It's just so important. And I think it goes beyond marriage, to be honest. I think it, just in general relationships you have with people, there are some people you don't need around, there are some people you do need around, and I don't even think you're really the judge of that, but your actions and how you deal with things will be the judge of that, if that makes sense. Like, as in, people will draw nearer to you, people will pull away from you, but as long as you know what you're doing is honouring God, is in line with his word, is in line with what he's telling you, then it kind of got to deal with the consequences of it, you know. So I think definitely in marriage you have to have, for me, I knew that was a big thing. I have to have an understanding of what God's saying. I need to know what he's saying. I need to understand what he's saying, because ultimately, just in general, people get on my nerves. Like, and I can't say that my husband is exempt from that equation. Unfortunately, like, he does things that get on my nerves. And in the real world, or without Christ, I know that, bro, like, ain't got time for this, keep it moving. So, and that's a very, yeah, like, where was your basis? Because I see why it can, I won't say easy to walk away, but I can see why people can walk away without really thinking about it. I can see why people can just say, you know what, I've had enough, I'm done. Because unfortunately, when it's just based on ourselves, that's what happens. Like, it's just your basis, it's just your thinking, no other influence on that, it's just you, you know. And I don't believe you should do this, even other people. I do believe you need some wisdom that will give you grace to just keep moving, and for me that is the word. So yeah, so that was just my next thing, and to read about humility and things like that, I think is so important, like in relationships. Like, yeah, really important. Need to work on it. Obviously can't talk about just the man loving the wife, have to talk about submission as well, and that was my next learning thing I loved about the book as well, about what I was reading. On page 88 it talks about, like, some reasons why we should think about submission, and I think one of the biggest reasons why a lot of people are scared to submit to someone, even if it's not your husband, but just to someone, is when let me even just talk about myself. If I just find you a bit of a loser, I ain't gonna submit to you. Like, I'm gonna find it so difficult. Like, I don't care what role you have, like, I'm gonna find it difficult. Like, to the point, if you're my parent and I find you a bit of a loser, I'm gonna find it hard. Like, I would listen to things you say, but I'm gonna find it very hard to really just trust you. Like, whatever you say, I'm probably gonna go research it. I'm gonna probably go check it out for myself before I decide to make the decision. Whereas I believe submission is more of, when they do say something, you to go ahead. Like, there's just not a lack of trust between you. You will do it. So there was one point that they mentioned in that principle, and it says that when we submit, we are respectfully submitting to a God-given position, not perfection. So this is in light of husband and wife. In other words, our husbands are going to make mistakes. They will not always deserve to be the leader in our eyes, but God will always deserve our obedience to him in this way. And since the command to submit comes from God, our submission is ultimately to him. So yeah, so when I was just reading it, I was like, yeah, for real, like, because I'm not saying I'm perfect and everyone should submit, but I know for me, that's one of my things, like, yeah, I have to have like full respect for you. Like, I just have to fully respect you. Otherwise, I'm like, I'll question what you say. But that just reminded me, like, it's not about perfection of that person, and it is about obedience to God. So it goes back again, like, what is your foundation? And I can't say it makes it easier. By God's grace, it will now make it easier as I will continuously remind myself when things happen. But it does put it back into perspective for me, like, yeah, let me not be a prideful person, basically. But yeah, let me learn how to submit. Let me learn how to submit even though I don't see that person as perfect. Or it doesn't even have to be perfect, but just there can be some things that just make me really think, like, really. Yeah, so I just have to, it's not about perfection. It isn't about perfection. And in a way, it's not even about the person. But if that's the position they have been given, and we're married, so that's the position he's been given in my life, then I have to learn to do it in obedience to God. So yeah, so that's my, that just hit me when I read it. So there are, like, how many points did they put? So they got 5 different principles. Let me see which other one I liked. Just these kind of reminders that our submission to God should be absolute. We are not meant to submit to our husbands if they ask us to sin, which is fair enough. I liked point 3, said we are designed to help our husbands and to accomplish so much more together. God decided that it was good for man not to be alone, so he created a helper fit for Adam. And he said, embrace your God-given role, give your husband the benefit of your insight, wisdom and perspective, but also give him the freedom to move and lead in the direction he feels God is leading, which I just think is really, really important. I remember there's someone that I knew, and she was just telling me about her husband, and the way she was, I felt really sorry for the husband, because she is very controlling in a way, and I just felt like, because of the way she is, and I think because things have happened to her, so she just likes to have a very controlled environment. She, I feel like she's holding him back, and she's not encouraging him to move forward in any way. Like, she's happy with the non-change, and he's not in the best place, which I just felt like, why, this person's older than you, this person can really take you places and really show you a lot of this, because she's got a very young mentality as well, and I'm like, this person can really take you places, but it's like she controls him, and it's a two-way street, because I think he likes the control as well, unfortunately. But I did feel like, wow, and I don't know why, but I just remember her saying that certain things, and that was my thought, like, this guy could be like, do so much more if you weren't like how you were, if you weren't just controlling the situation. And sometimes even me, I can be very like you fight for your perspective. Like, if your perspective makes so much more sense than what your husband's saying, I will kind of nearly fight for it. Like, come on. So I'm starting to learn how to, and if that's what you believe, cool, keep it moving, But I think as well, that's a big thing, like, understanding where they're coming from. Like, if it's what the Lord is telling them to do, I can't really argue, and I'm probably less likely to argue with that, less likely to say anything with that. So I'm less likely to say anything about that if it's coming from God, and more likely to be, if it's just like there's no basis for your information, I'm probably gonna try and come from a thing. But even in that, I feel like you have to be reasonable, you have to give that room as well, and not always just have your viewpoint, and it's only your viewpoint allowed in the situation. I think that could cause a lot of problems with a person. You can almost make them feel like, just squash them, like make them feel like, just like number 5 talks about, the Bible's concept of submission does not put your husband in the place of God. If a woman finds herself being subjected to abuse, she shouldn't hesitate to involve the authorities that can hold her husband accountable. But I also want to encourage every wife to believe that God can bring restoration and healing in even in the most hopeless of situations, which, you know, because there is that argument like abuse and all of that, like what is God saying about that and stuff like that. So I just think it was a good reminder to have those. But yeah, I like those 5 principles of they brought out about humility, and was definitely an enjoyable section to read and really got me thinking as well. So do you take a read of that? And my final point is our mission. Like, what are we about to do? What are we going to do? Which I did touch on in it earlier. Like basically asking ourselves, like, why are we together? Where are we going? What is this all about? And I think after years and years and years, and I think I always feel like this. I just generally feel like this. Like, what, you get married, all happy. Then I guess the pressure of having kids comes in, because you believe that's what married people do. Then you have kids, and then I kind of think, what next? Like, well, what do you do next? Like, what's next? Like, what comes after that? But I always remember, like, before I got married, the one thing I did understand was that we had a mission. Like, we had a mission, and I was so attracted to how my husband would share the word with people and how he would break it down, and that was just so encouraging to me. And I could see how we would work as a team, if that would make sense, because yeah, I could just see how it would work as a team. And yeah, that was just like really encouraging to me. Like, that, yeah, that was just so like, wow, like, yeah, that was really encouraging. But I found now that we are married, like, somehow the focus has kind of shifted to what married people do, whereas that was one of the biggest reasons for me why we got married, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, I just saw that greater thing, and I realized with him we'd be able to achieve that thing. Whereas, yes, it was like, weirdly, it was less about all this lovey-dovey stuff and less about having kids and all of that. But now we're in it, it's probably become more about the lovey-dovey stuff and more about having kids and less about the people around and setting cactus free. And I just think that, the book just reminded me of these things that, yeah, these things stirred me up before I got married. These things were the things that were making me excited about marriage, you know. And then now I'm kind of in it, I'm like, oh yeah, like, for real, that was those things. Now, you know, I'm getting a bit sidetracked. So it was just about the mission, and then it talks about what is the mission, you know. According to God's word, that mission is to make disciples, you know. And it didn't mean once you get married that stops and your focus is your family and that's it, that's you guys, no one else, you know, which is what unfortunately we tend to do, because it's just something, there's always something after something after something after something. But to just always remember that it is about making disciples, like, yeah. And that's why I think it's a good book for even before you get married, because these are things you should think about. These are things you should have together. These are discussions you should be having, you know, together. Like, but like, why us? Like, why us? Why not me and someone else? Because is marriage just about being with someone and that's it? Like, whoa, I love this person, I'm gonna be with them for the rest of my life. Or is there something greater than that? And I'm of the persuasion that there is truly something greater than that. There is truly something more than that. And yeah, I was just greatly reminded of it. Like, what's the mission? What's the mission? And yeah, I pray over my household that this, we will not forget. We will not forget. It won't, you know, because people are like, oh, Ty, you've like kind of disappeared and stuff like that. But it's like I haven't purposely. I just know there's some things I need to work on because there's a bigger picture out there, you know, and I really want to execute the bigger picture, which involves touching lives. Like, there's just no way whatever I do in life cannot touch lives. It must. I can't just be sitting in one place. And I just, yeah, I just know we were brought together to do that in a great way. So that's my prayer, like how to see that out, to really see that out and not be sidetracked by, yeah, becoming a wife and the, I can't even say privileges or whatever comes with being a wife, and then the next thing being a mother, and just getting so caught up in that nothing else matters. When according to the word which I believe in, that wasn't the mission. That wasn't what it was all about. That wasn't it. Yeah. Like, yeah, that wasn't it. Yeah, like, yeah, go forth and multiply. Yes, have kids. But that wasn't it. Like, I just, yeah, I'm just not the persuasion that that's it. I've always been of the persuasion that there's something greater that we're to achieve. And I really pray that we will. And I really pray that others will really think about this as well. That you will look at your marriage and actually think about, like, why are we together? Like, not in a hate or like, oh, is it, oh, I don't love them or whatever. But actually, like, what, us being together, like, what are we going to achieve? Like, if we were separate, what would we achieve separately? But coming together, like, what would we achieve? It's like if two companies come together, it's usually because they're trying to take over the whole market. You know, they're trying to get the majority of the market because then they can have greater power over that market, you know? So it's like actually thinking about it, like, why are we together? Like, what, us being together, how is that going to impact people around that, the people around us? Like, how is that going to impact, yeah, what's going on? Because so much is going on, so many things are going on, and we can choose to be in our little bubble, you know, go to work and everything's all hunky-dory, we're in our nice house, driving our nice cars, with our lovely kids that are so smart and they're all in school and, you know, they're all on top and this, that, the other. We can get caught up in that, we really can. But I just know there's more. And I felt like they brought it out, like they reminded me of it so much, and kind of tried to kind of give advice on how they deal with it, you know. Knowing bits about Francis Chan, like I listen to his messages and stuff, and you can just hear his heart when he speaks. You hear the passion and love he has for Christ is just real, and he wants to pour out his life for it, like to the point. In the book he talks about you know, how where God should be in your life, like how we probably order it, you know, like God, family, da 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 da. And you can see that not because he doesn't love his family, but Christ is first. Like, he is first. Whatever Christ is saying is first. Yeah. And yeah, it just makes me so emotional thinking about it, because I just know before I got into marriage, that was a big thing, from such a massive thing. Yeah, and I was so encouraged when I could see it. Like, I could just see, like, wow, like this is so powerful. Like, this is so powerful. But now we kind of just got caught up in the run of things, and I don't want to chill there. I honestly don't want to chill. I don't want to chill. And this book, just reading this book, yeah. And because it talks about even the mission, like obviously when you know where you're going, it talks about unity coming into place with that. And it talks about he doesn't even have much in common with his wife except the fact that they love God. And I do honestly believe that that is that's when I learned, like, that's something I learned. Like, you know, some people, like, they can marry someone, they couldn't, like, you could be black and say, oh, I couldn't marry a white person, or I couldn't marry someone from this culture, I couldn't marry someone from that culture. But I remember once I understood the love of Christ, wow, like, my eyes were open. Like, I learned, like, if that's our foundation, like, if we have that in common, no one is exempt from who I could marry. No one is exempt from that. No one is exempt from who I could talk to, who I could be tight friends with. No one, all of a sudden, no one was exempt from that. Because I just realized, like, wow, like, if that basis is real, like, if that passion is real, we're going to connect on a different kind of level, and we could get lost in that. Like, we could so get lost in that. Like, we could so get lost in that. And yeah, like, what's your what how do you see your mission? Like, how do you see where you're going? How do you see your marriage in 10 years? Is it all about just being lovey-dovey, or, like, do you just see great impact? Because there's just more. There is so much more, so much more. And yeah, I just wouldn't want us to miss it. Like, I'm so glad I read this book. I have to say, it's been my favorite one to read. Yeah, so if you didn't get a chance to read it, I'd say definitely pick up a copy. I will definitely leave the link so you can find out where to purchase one, and take a read. As I said, even if you're not married, I think there's definitely bits in it that you will pick up, like, that will get you thinking, to think more about marriage, and how it can be you and that person forever, and in light of eternity, because it's in light of Christ, it's in light of where we're going, and the bigger picture, because our picture is so, like, so, even if we're only thinking of 70 years, eternity is forever. Like, so 70 years is nothing. Like, it's actually nothing. So yeah, we just need to think about it. So I'd say definitely pick it up, take a read, and see, yeah, what you pick out of it. But I definitely one to read, whether you're married, whether you're not married, because it's a reminder. It's a reminder. What are you getting yourself into? So if you're engaged as well, definitely a reminder, like, what you guys are getting yourself into. Yeah, I say a reminder, just putting things more into perspective, not just about love and satisfying one another. Like, I just think there's so much more we should be touching on about the way bigger picture in terms of Christ. And that is what he talks about. And when he talks about marriage in light of eternity, that is what he's talking about. And yeah, I really enjoyed the book. Like, you can probably tell, like, I feel so sober. And I really enjoyed it. I was just telling my husband, no, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed this book. And it had tasks as well at the end of each chapter, like stuff to think about, stuff that you could do, so you can practically put this out. Because I was saying to myself, I was like, if I went service every Sunday and heard a message like this, oh my gosh, I'd be so stirred. And if I wasn't doing anything, I'd be so frustrated with myself. Like, I'm like that. Like, I have to be an action person, and if I'm not actioning something out, I get irritated with myself. I get really frustrated because I want to action it out. And so those kind of things really help, where you can just sit down and do some of the tasks and actually, yeah, think about it. So eternity proof your marriage, I'd say, and take a read of the book. But thanks for watching once again, guys. Leave your comments if you have any questions, if there was anything you didn't understand, and if you totally just disagree with what I'm saying, or you totally agree with what I'm saying, like, I'd love to hear from you. So thanks once again, and I will soon announce the book for August. I can't believe we're already into August, but I will have a lovely book for you for August as well. So thanks, and stay tuned. Thanks, bye.